6 reasons why Ukraine will win the war. Ukraine is winning and will win the war against Russia. The many problems afflicting the Russian army point to the failure of the just-launched Donbas offensive. Before Russia's invasion, most Western experts held the same optimistic view as that of the Kremlin, that Ukraine would quickly surrender and the capital city of Kyiv would fall within 2 days. They were proven wrong, and many have egg on their faces. These are 6 reasons why Russia is losing and Ukraine's victory is inevitable. Number 6. The first factor is corruption. Although corruption in Ukraine is a regular feature in Western media, it pales in comparison to that found in the kleptocratic, mafia state Putin has created over more than 2 decades in power. Western experts fail to factor in how massive top-down corruption in the Russian military undermined most of the military reforms that were undertaken after Russia's 2008 invasion of Georgia. Very expensive Russian military equipment became stuck in muddy fields because cheaper Chinese tires had been purchased that could not carry the heavy load. Russian army trucks were also cheaply purchased and therefore not strong enough to carry military equipment or operate off-road. Corruption has badly affected logistics, the backbone of any army, and made supplying Russia's invasion force impossible. Food supplies to soldiers, supplied by Yevgeny Prigozhin, the chef to the Kremlin, were 7 years out of date. Starving Russian soldiers occupying the Kyiv region were forced to eat dead dogs. Medical kits supplied to soldiers were from 1978, out-of-date Soviet supplies rendered useless in preventing battlefield wounds. Number 5. The second factor is that Ukrainian officers have been trained in NATO military academies for over 2 decades since Ukraine joined the Partnership for Peace program, PFP, in 1994. Since the 2014 crisis, 8 NATO members have provided hands-on training with Ukrainian instructors internalizing the training and going on to lead training themselves. Through classes, drills and exercises involving at least 10,000 troops annually for more than 8 years, NATO and its members helped the embattled country shift from rigid Soviet-style command structures to Western standards where soldiers are taught to think on the move. Russian military tactics have not developed significantly since the Soviet era and are therefore predictable. In contrast, Ukrainian forces operate in a surprise manner with attacks and ambushes sowing chaos, panic and defeatism in the Russian army. NATO military equipment, such as NLAWs, Stingers, Javelins, and Turkish Bayraktar drones, are ideally suited for autonomous and agile military units and special forces who can use them to inflict high casualties and destroy large amounts of Russian military equipment. Western military equipment is augmented by Ukrainian. The Neptune missile that sunk the Moskva flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, with the loss of 500 crew, is Ukrainian-built. Ukraine was an important part of the Soviet military-industrial complex, and the biggest nuclear weapons factory in the world was based in the Ukrainian city of Dnipropetrovsk. Number 4. The third factor is Ukrainians have prevented Russia from dominating the air. Turkey has trained Ukrainians in the operation of Bayraktar drones. In addition, Ukraine's Air Force pilots, who are far fewer than Russian, have been given greater autonomy and have proven to be a match for Russia's larger air force, shooting down over 300 jets, bombers and helicopters. Number 3. The fourth factor is special forces. Ukraine's military and SBU security service, special forces have been trained to NATO standards and equipped with state-of-the-art equipment. This training has been augmented by 8 years of experience fighting against Russian forces using different forms of hybrid warfare in eastern Ukraine. Ukrainian special forces and Marines continue to hold the port of Mariupol. Number 2. The fifth factor is Ukraine, with decades of experience in cybernetics, which is important for Soviet nuclear weapons and a large IT sector, has excelled at intercepting Russian military communications which have been exceptionally poor, sometimes relying on mobile phones. The SBU, military intelligence and volunteers hack Russian military communications and the intelligence is used to plan attacks. Ukrainian intelligence is augmented with intelligence provided by NATO and US satellites. And number 1. The sixth factor is NATO's training, and Ukraine's democratization has instilled a respect for soldiers that has never existed in the Soviet and Russian armies. Ukrainian morale is high. Russian soldiers are unsure why they are fighting in Ukraine, leading to low morale and criminality, such as widespread looting. The Soviet and Russian armies have never had dog tags, as casualty rates were unimportant. Ukraine introduced them after 2014. The Russian army is uninterested in its battlefield dead and refuses to collect its dead soldiers from Ukrainian morgues. Towns and villages turn out in high numbers to honor killed Ukrainian soldiers. Ukraine is fighting a 21st-century war against a 20th-century Russian army. This is why Ukraine is winning and will defeat Russia.